Okay, let's do this. So welcome everyone to our first webinar here at the Irish Society for Disability and Oral Health. It's our first webinar of the year, and we're excited because it's on social media and special care dentistry, something that I don't think is talked about very much, certainly not within special care dentistry. So nowadays you go on Instagram and X and we see all of these dental influencers posting about composite bonding and pediatrics and oral surgery, but there's proportionately smaller representation of special care dentistry compared to the other stuff. So and it's not that it doesn't exist, as we know very well it exists, and we have amazing stories to share. But there are things that are possibly stopping us from doing so. And the appetite is certainly there as well to share, as we can see by the amazing turnout here this evening. So the purpose of this evening then is to have that conversation about, what those barriers are from posting and how to overcome the hurdles, so that we can advocate for our patients and also attract young people into the specialty. So before all that, just a couple of housekeeping rules. The Q&A you can see is at the bottom of the video monitor for you, and you can ask questions throughout. It might be useful as well for other attendees to kind of share their own perspectives on what our speakers will talk about, and that can be done through the chat function. And it would be really nice to kind of have a conversation around this topic during or at the end of the webinar, and ask questions throughout the webinar because we will be answering them as we go along. There'll be polls throughout, so make sure you have your phones handy to answer questions on the polls. Just helps to make it more engaging, and also gives the speakers an idea of what the audience looks like, what you guys do on social media. And if you have a question at the end or have an opinion that you'd like to share verbally, you can raise your hand at the end of the webinar to share your thoughts vocally on a particular point. And the functionality of Zoom might differ depending on the device that you're using, so just get familiar with that while I go through the boring stuff. And the last little disclaimer is so our speakers, they're not professionals in social media, but they are huge advocates for ethically promoting special care dentistry. I follow them, and I believe that they do a wonderful job. They're both based in the UK as well, so please bear that in mind when considering kind of your own local policies and guidelines within your place of work. So I will pass you on to Dr. Neil Martin. He's our current president of the society, and he'll speak to you about some the exciting conference we have planned in the summer, and also introduce our speakers.
Okay, thank you, Ahmed. Good evening, everybody. Whether you're in Longford or London, Naas or Northampton, you're most welcome to our webinar this evening. The conference this year is going to be called Looking After Yourself, Looking After Your Patients. It's in Dunleary at the Royal Marine Hotel, which you can see behind me. And there's a Thursday afternoon workshop where we'll be having speakers on mental resilience, and we'll have a physiotherapist come in. And on the day itself, on the Friday, we've got lectures on local anaesthetic, nitrous oxide sedation, intravenous sedation, and the interface with general anaesthesia. And we've got some very interesting speakers to attend, so we're looking forward to that. So I'll introduce Kiren and Ayman. I seem to last year bumped into them all over the place, from the NEC in Birmingham to Seoul at IADH and other places. But they're very two very enthusiastic special care dentists. Kiren is a registrar in training in Birmingham at the moment, and Ayman has completed her training and she's now a specialist in special care. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to them.
Lovely, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Ahmed and Neil. So first of all, I want to start by saying, Fulshire, welcome to our webinar. We are so pleased to be here tonight, talking to you all about social media and special care dentistry. A special thank you to ISDH for inviting us to speak today. So as we mentioned, we are talking about social media and special care. And as Ahmed mentioned, we are not by any means experts in social media. However, we really do enjoy using social media. As well as that, we love our jobs in special care. So what better than being able to bring the two together for the greater good of special care? And we'll talk to you about why it is the greater good throughout the webinar. So a little side note, all views are our own. There will be plenty of opportunities to ask questions through the webinar, so please do interact with us. We will endeavour to answer all questions. However, if there are any questions that we don't know the answers to, we will definitely get back to you. So as Neil mentioned, we are based in Birmingham. You can see a photograph here of us in Seoul in South Korea, where we attended the International Association of Disability and Oral Health, and that's where we also bumped into Neil as well. We are very passionate special care dentists who really are excited to talk to you about this topic today, as we feel like it's a topic that doesn't get discussed enough. We'd love for this session to be really nice and interactive, so please do join in with us. There are also some Menti polls lined up, so please don't miss out on participating in those. So moving on to our learning objectives. So today we really want to identify which social media platforms you're all using and talk a little bit more on each one. We also then want to have a look at the challenges associated with using social media within special care, especially when it comes to consent and confidentiality, as well as maintaining this when we're having a presence on social media. We will then take a look at the all-important Dental Council guidelines and how we can comply with these guidelines while having a presence on social media. And then finally, we want to highlight the real benefits of using social media within special care, because there are many, as well as the things that we need to be mindful of whenever we are online. We do want to hear from all of you listening about what you feel like the challenges are as well, so we can discuss on an open forum how we can overcome these challenges to help really raise awareness of special care dentistry. So moving on to our first Menti poll. So you can search on your computer or laptop device. If you search for menti.com and then input the code, you'll be able to access a couple of the questions that we have to start. So the first question looks at which social media platforms you're using at the moment, just to give us a little bit of a flavour of what everyone is using currently. So it is multiple choice, so please do select more than one. I know that I do use more than one social media platform. And if you do select other, do let us know what other platform you're using, especially if it's a good one. We don't want to be missing out. Interesting. So yes, I thought Instagram would be high up on there because that's one of our firm favourites. Facebook is an oldie but a goldie. It's always there and lots of people do use it. Super. So yeah, it's sort of a good mix of all of the platforms. Just give it a couple more minutes for some more people to reply. Oh, we'll move on to the next one. So this next question, I think we're just having a bit of technical difficulty. So we were lucky it started working in the first instance. I think sometimes you can never tell with these fancy things that you embed into your presentations. Oh, lovely. So, more people using YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, so it's a good mix. Oh, there is a selection for other. I wonder what that one is. I wonder if we can see. So please do let us know what the other platform is. It'd be great to see. Fab. We can move on to the next question. Oh, two for them. gave Ayman the difficult job of trying to navigate Menti. Thank you, Ayman. So I think the next question looks at which is your most commonly used. And again, the top three. Oh, LinkedIn now in the mix as well. So I think LinkedIn is a great one too that we will discuss in a bit more detail. What's a good variety? Good variety there. Mainly Instagrams, like I said, firm favourite of ours. Ooh, a lot for Instagram. We did suspect that that might be the case. Fabulous. And then I think we've got our final question. Yeah, so this is looking at the purpose for which you use social media. So I know lots of people do use it personally. Ayman and I both also use it for professional purposes too, and that's why we're here today to talk to you. Lots of people, a good amount of people are using it for both too, so that's good to see. It's what we want to see here in special care, so that's amazing. And hopefully we can get that number right up after today's webinar. Fingers crossed. Super. So thank you everyone for participating with that. It really gives us a good idea of the platform use and which are the most popular used social media. So next up, we want to start by looking at some of the key social media platforms, all of which the audience has shown today that we are using. So when we look at key social media platforms, we know each one has its own unique content style. So for example, when we look at YouTube, we know that's the go-to for longer form video. So when you're on YouTube, you often can have access to tutorials, vlogs or video blogs and documentaries. While Instagram is centered more around visual content like photos and short videos. It's quite popular amongst influencers and brands, and its main focus is visual storytelling. Therefore, it's quite a key platform to connect with your followers, and that's one that I really like. I find it quite simple to use, and I'll talk you through a few more details on that throughout the webinar. TikTok is shorter form video, so it's around 15 to 60 seconds long. And these videos are usually quite fun, quite creative. You may have seen a TikTok that we made to advertise this webinar. You also may have heard in recent uproar from the US president where they said that TikTok might not be available for our US colleagues, with them disappearing off US, but that was short-lived and they were back. So thankfully, our US colleagues can also join in the fun when it comes to special care dentistry. Moving on to Facebook, we know that Facebook's quite a popular one. It's there for updates, photos, videos, event invitations, and again, allows you to stay connected. So that's one that lots of people still do use. X, on the other hand, thrives on short text updates. So if you're quite a concise and succinct type of person, you might enjoy X with its limit to 280 characters per post. And then finally, looking at LinkedIn, which serves quite a very different purpose. It focuses mainly on professional content such as career updates, industry news, and networking opportunities. And this is used mainly for professionals and businesses. So we just want to talk a little bit more about Instagram and LinkedIn, as we felt these have the most benefit for our special care dentistry community online. So I'm aware that many of you will be more than familiar. I could see from the poll that a lot of us are already using Instagram. So I'll quickly just provide a little quick refresher on how we can use Instagram and show you ways in which we can share content online. So here is a snippet of my own Instagram profile. You can see the orange arrow at the bottom points to an area where you store your posts. These are permanent and typically feature photos and videos which serve as the main way to showcase your content on Instagram. So the videos are also known as Reels, so that's the top tip. And these are short, engaging videos. They usually have a little bit of music in the background as well. The first green arrow shows where your stories are stored. So this, on the other hand, are photos and videos which are temporary. So they usually disappear after 24 hours. This gives you a nice casual way to engage with your audience. This is why I personally quite enjoy it, because it allows me to update my page on a daily basis really quickly, and it doesn't feel like I'm having to commit to a post that I'm going to see on my page forever, essentially. You can save these highlights. You can save the stories to your highlights, which is shown by the second green arrow. And this allows you to save that story so you can refer back to it to create a lasting collection of your memories. Looking at LinkedIn in a bit more detail, we feel like this is a great tool for dentistry, as it allows professionals to connect. So you can easily connect with people you may know from your organisation or university. As well as that, with LinkedIn's algorithm, it also suggests connections based on your role and place of work. So therefore, you're able to find others in similar roles to yourself. So this would be great for special care dentists around the world to be able to connect and reach out easily. It makes it that much easier to exchange insight, advice, and opportunity, and help us build our community online. It also allows us to create quite meaningful connections, as the people who LinkedIn recommends you to follow are those who have similar job to yourself, as well as interests to you too. So today we're talking about social media and special care, because social media is a great opportunity for us to raise awareness and advocate for both our patients and their families about the unique challenges and needs of those who require special care dentistry. As well as that, social media can help us as special care dentists connect with each other, share our own experiences, and support each other navigating the challenges of our profession. So we know social media is rapidly evolving, and dentistry does have a strong presence online. So I know personally, when I log on to my social media, I see dentists promoting their practices, promoting the treatments that they carry out. I also see dental students showcasing their journey through dental school, as well as a whole host of patient cases being discussed amongst professionals. But one thing that I don't see is much of special care dentistry. We know that special care dentistry on social media is quite limited, and it's quite underrepresented online. We want to try and help kickstart that change with this webinar. So it really is our chance on social media to fly the flag for special care online. We want to promote its importance, ensure it gets the visibility it deserves. So today also gives us that opportunity to explore the challenges we may face in trying to do this, and hopefully we can discuss these all together to overcome the challenges that we foresee. It will help us increase our visibility and our engagement for special care in the digital space. I'm just going to hand over to Ayman now to talk about some benefits of special care dentistry being used on social media.
This is great, because I'm seeing that the Menti has already been started to be used, and these are some of the points that we'll be covering, so it's really, really good. So if you have any others to add, I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to add those in. And I can see that there's a question on the chat. Oh, there we go, perfect, just a thumbs up. So we'll I was just seeing what was on the chat, so I'll just give a couple of seconds just for anybody to add anything. But yeah, I think these are all fantastic points. Awareness of a dental specialty, I'm going to talk about very soon. Educating patients, links with voluntary organisations, all fantastic points. Making accessible information, all things I'll be touching upon. And I think exactly that, you're really showing and highlighting those benefits that are already coming through, and why hopefully today's conversation is the start of a change in seeing social media, special care on social media. Fantastic sharing experiences. The patients can get educated quicker, creating awareness, linking in with non-dental healthcare professionals. Yep, greater visibility. We're advocates for our patient, funding reasons. Definitely, if we can see more of what we do online, then fingers crossed our organizations will be able to help us get better funding. Brilliant. These are all fantastic answers, and keep them coming. So what I wanted to talk to you about is some of the benefits that Kiren and I have explored and wanted to highlight today. So the first one, which Kiren mentioned, is flying the flag for special care dentistry. We want to raise that awareness. This really was highlighted to us when we went to IEDH in Seoul. We saw that special care dentistry is so different and practiced so differently all around the world. And there are such challenges that every kind of organization is facing that are different. And we want a space for that to be kind of discussed. And we think social media could be that space. We want to be able to share best practice. We want to show what we do, right? Because we have such a rewarding career that is so different day to day. And we can take this opportunity to learn from colleagues, both nationally and internationally. We also want our colleagues in our other specialties to recognize what we do too. So this is a really good opportunity for us to raise that awareness of special care dentistry. The next thing is promoting accessibility. The population that we serve has challenges in accessing dental services, and that's usually why we see them and we try and overcome those challenges with providing reasonable adjustments. And I think the reasonable adjustments that we make are not necessarily just dental specific, they're also in general services, and by advertising and putting out there those reasonable adjustments that we make, hopefully we can take those into other realms and advocate for our patients and get them getting access to better care in also just the medical world and beyond, really. Also, for our dental colleagues as well in the dental interface, we could see that, you know, with GDPs as well, they could potentially make these reasonable adjustments, and that would help in our patient burden as well, because we see a huge amount of patients, and sometimes I do think that we could make these reasonable adjustments elsewhere. So it gives us an opportunity to promote that accessibility. The next one is a big one, and this is networking. A lot of us may be coming from a community dental services background, or we might work in more rural locations. And sometimes you can, you know, work in a dental community practice and not see people or colleagues for the entire week, for example, in a smaller practice. You might be in touch with them via WhatsApp or other kind of communication methods, but we want to build a network that's wider than that and give that opportunity to be in touch with colleagues in your service and beyond. We have this opportunity to go wider. We can build that international community, we can build that national community, and that's why we think this is such a fantastic opportunity for us. As you mentioned in some of the benefits, oral health education. I'm seeing a lot online from dentists showcasing kind of the importance of oral hygiene methods, toothbrushing techniques, how to floss, etc. We have a very kind of specific cohort of patients who all require adaptations for oral health education. And I think this is a really good opportunity for us to put those out there. We all know the impact of what oral hygiene has and oral health education on, caregivers of our cohort. So we have this opportunity to use social media to put that information out there, and then we can talk about how we can get it to reach the right audiences as well. I know I'm a huge lover of my Dr. Barman's toothbrush and advocating for my oral nurse, and these are all simple adaptations that I think if we put out there and get in a more public forum, we can really get that patient education and try and get that to be reinforced from home as well, not just from when we see them in the clinic once every 6 months, for example. The next thing is sharing opportunities. As we know, we're all meeting at conferences, once or twice a year, but these social media is the opportunity to share those conferences, not just to people within the special care dentistry world, but beyond that, we want attendance from dental care professionals, allied healthcare professionals, and also, like I said, dental colleagues from other specialties too. We know ISDH is fantastic at promoting their conferences and a lot of their social media online, and we see this and we recognize this, and we want more visibility for other opportunities as well. I think we're all doing fantastic work, nationwide. There's so many fantastic publications that are coming out, but we need that visibility as well, and social media can give us that, because the thing is, it's all well and good writing the paper, and we put so much effort into it, and then sometimes you don't know whether it's getting seen, and we can use social media as that opportunity. So I've seen actually on LinkedIn that this is happening more regularly. It can give us a wider reach and hopefully then have a big impact if we're able to use social media to put these publications out there. Also, there's the opportunity for presentations at conferences, oral, poster presentations, etc., and prizes that are always on offer. I know sometimes that people, the prizes might not be, well advertised, etc. So this is all an opportunity for us to get social media, special care dentistry on the social media scene. The next thing is that dentistry is an ever-changing landscape. It's an ever-evolving industry, and we've got, technology left, right, and center. And I think this is an opportunity for us to learn about those innovations and then think about how we can bring them into the special care dentistry world. I know one recently that we discussed at conferences, etc., has been, for example, the innovation of scanners and how we can bring them into, for example, domiciliary environments. And this is just one example of how we can learn about new innovations through, and put these out on social media, see how we can then bring them into our world. The next thing is that, as Kiren mentioned, our next generation of dentists, the dental students, we're seeing so much more about their journey online. We want to catch them at the beginning of their kind of journey. I know that undergraduate education does not, fully comprehensively cover special care dentistry. So we really want to get that word out there, because we know that there are challenges with the recruitment and retention in special care dentistry. So this gives us that opportunity to influence the next generation from the start. And what Kiren will also mention is that, she's had fantastic feedback from the dental students and from, dental core trainees, etc., from putting social media posts about special care dentistry out there and really getting that engagement from them. We know that our population that we serve in special care dentistry is ever growing. We're going to need more people to help us in our journey, to help to look after our patients. So we really, really want to try and fight these challenges from the beginning. And I think by flying the flag for special care dentistry from the outset, we can engage with these dentists and encourage them to come into our career pathway as well. But of course, we recognise that with every challenge comes a pitfall. And I think it's important for us to discuss this. As we know, social media is not, the same as reading a journal. There is misinformation out there. And definitely, we know that it's not necessarily a reliable source of information. The information is not always accurate, but we, I think, have an opportunity to help with this and actually get more factual and accurate information out there, because we would take it upon ourselves to make sure that when we're putting information out there, that it is accurate. So we have, of course, the risk of sharing incorrect information, but I think as professionals, we would take it upon ourselves as a duty to ensure that we are fact-checking everything we're doing. We can use colleagues as a sounding board to check what we're putting out there. And we want to make sure that the information that our patients are seeing, or, our colleagues are seeing, is accurate. So there is that risk, but I think hopefully you can see the vast benefit in trying to ensure that we, if we as dental professionals put the right information out there, then we can hopefully improve that element of misinformation that is shared around on social media out there. So what we can do to kind of target this is also put links out there. So we have social media can be kind of the start, and then it can direct you towards, for example, links to papers, etc. So we can use this opportunity for correcting misinformation, really. The next thing, which I think is a big topic that we need to talk about, is sharing information. And Kiren's going to go into the guidance a little bit later in our presentation. But we know that our patient cohort, a lot of them can have, for example, capacity challenges. And then we think, how would we kind of share that information regarding them, pictures, etc. And how do we do this without breaching patient confidentiality? And this is really, really, really important. There are challenges in this, and I think that this is a perfect forum for us to discuss these today. And this is why we're opening up this conversation. But our cohort isn't necessarily kind of limited to this. We have a cohort of, for example, phobic adults, medically compromised patients who are potentially able to consent, and we could also use those kind of cases, etc. And also, it's not just that we can share information through cases. There are other ways to share information as well. And again, we're going to go into examples of that a little bit later. We need to talk about how we have to make cases non-identifiable and anonymized. And again, we're going to go into that. But it is a challenge, and I think that it's a difficult balance in terms of putting information out there that's valuable, that has lessons to be learned, but then also, not having it identifiable and not sharing too many patient-specific details to make sure that we can ensure the patient's confidentiality. And so that's why, again, we're in this forum today to open up that discussion about how we can get around this. The next one is, negative interactions. I think this is really, really challenging. We've all seen the trolls on social media, and they're going to keep coming, unfortunately. But again, what Kiren and I want to kind of take from this is that there are going to be individuals that are misinformed out there. It's up to us how we engage with them. We can either try and correct their misinformation, or choose not to engage, or choose to hide their comments. And I'll let you kind of figure out what would be the best way for you to deal with that. But there are going to be negative people out there. And also, I think at the moment, there's a lot of negativity generally about, for example, NHS waiting times, HSE waiting times, etc. So I think that there are potentially opportunities for us to be kind of getting that the false kind of negative interactions. But again, like I said, it's about how we deal with it, and we can talk about this as a community. Also, we have a professional reputation to protect. We need to balance our personal and professional boundaries. And again, we're going to be talking about how to do this very, very shortly. So the next question is, what challenges do we face with special care dentistry and social media? So I'll let you have a moment to answer this question before I go on.
While everyone's answering, I just want to share. I love the passion and the energy coming. It's spewing out of my screen. It's really motivating. And I can see kind of why you do what you do, and hopefully why it'll kind of exude into our audience and onto me as well. Actually, I personally I don't use social media either professionally or personally, for kind of just I'm not so much someone who shows off or flaunts anything that I have, but it's not really about that. It's more so about advocating for our patients and in our profession, and there's a balance to be struck there in terms of and huge benefits to be had from posting it. So yeah, thank you. It's really motivating.
Yeah, I think you make fantastic points there, because I think exactly, and I think just looking at these challenges, I think they can really put us off. And make it a real barrier to us putting special care dentistry on the scene. But I think what Kiren and I have said throughout preparing this presentation, and even before that, for anybody who's met us in real life, we've always said that the mass benefit of flying the flag for special care dentistry is bigger than this. We have a bigger kind of motivation out there to get this out, to get special care dentistry on the scene, and especially because we are seeing those challenges, like I said, with recruitment and retention within our profession. I think it's all because people don't know what we're doing. And I think if they heard more about what we're doing, we'd get better engagement. So yeah, fingers crossed. I think we'd love to hear your opinions. Please also, use the chat function as well, to talk about the challenges that you think, and what might be stopping you from posting on social media. I know I'm always hesitant myself, Kiren and I both talk about this. We just kind of, you're always hesitant to put something out there, but you don't necessarily need to put your face out there as well. I think that's an important point to mention. Social media has like two sides to it. It's, the front side, which is putting your face out there, and then the back side, which is the kind of networking side of it. And I think if you start with the networking, hopefully we can move on to getting more things out there, and we can engage and build a really strong community. So we're seeing a few more, giving you a preview of what's coming up. We've got a few more challenges. So different quality of what is shared, accidentally putting patient identifiable details online. You become an agony aunt for people. That's an interesting one. Oh, we've managed to go back. Sorry, that's me. There's always going to be technical issues, aren't there? There we go. Back to that for a second. Oh, goodness me. I'll move on and we'll come back to the Mentimeter, I think. But I think those are all fantastic points. And I'm just going to talk you through some of the challenges that Kiren and I have come up with. The first one is really, who are we trying to reach with our social media presence? Is it colleagues? Is it patients? We know that some of our patients may not be able to access social media. So is it their caregivers that we're looking for? So really, it's about defining our audience and figuring out how we want to go about using social media. You can use hashtags. I know somebody said this is a fantastic point to kind of link with different communities and different organizations. We all know, like, Dementia Society, Alzheimer's Awareness, Mind, different kind of charities that we can get involved with to reach our audience and collaborate with. I think these are, again, whilst it's a challenge in terms of reaching our audience and getting that information out there, we can use different tools to try and get that visibility. As you mentioned, privacy, patient consent, a huge, huge element of this. And I don't think this is something that we should take lightly at all. I think that with this, we don't really have a full answer for you. And the challenge is that I think it's different everywhere you go, because everyone will have a different policy for this. What we've looked at today is kind of the national guidance from both the Dental Council of Ireland as well as the General Dental Council in England. And we've put together some guidance for you in terms of how to anonymise and make sure there's no patient identifiable details within this. And I think it is definitely going to be a challenge. But as I mentioned, we do have other cohorts of patients that are able to give consent. But then I think where the haziness comes from is if they give consent and you're working within an organisation, are you able to use those photos or that case within your own kind of professional social media? And I think this is something that you'd have to talk about locally within your local organisation as to how they would like you to go about this. And I think once we talk about this together, we can hopefully come up with some solutions, because I think that they would be open to us using it for educational purposes, or potentially having like this, social media page for the organisation and their special care dentistry department. But I think this is definitely something that is an open forum for us to discuss today. The next thing I think is clinical photography. Honestly, with me, no matter how many courses I go on, I still struggle with clinical photography. And with our cohort of patients who may have difficulty with complying, as we mentioned, camera training, that's difficult as well. And also, I think we recognise that in special care dentistry, it's not necessarily, the aligned bond and composite cases that look more aesthetic on the screen. It is, a different kind of dentistry that we do. And sometimes it's not pretty. So I think the thing is here that, as I mentioned, it's not always about the pictures. And I think pictures do get engagement. But what you'll see later from Kiren and the example she shows is actually, I think it's like captions and stories that really capture people's attention as well. So we can use kind of a little loophole there and using more our spoken word rather than pictures, etc. But I think this is a challenge that we need to talk about. The next thing is about including the team. So, our team is not limited to ourselves as dentists, it's our whole dental team. So it's the dental nurses, but then also we know in special care dentistry, we have allied healthcare professionals that we kind of converse with, and they're all involved in our kind of best interest process, for example. And actually getting them also involved in our social media would be a fantastic way. But it's all about consent. But I can see a future where we've got, live webinars with talking to our, learning disability nurses, talking about how we can make reasonable adjustments. They don't need to be patient specific in that forum. They can be more general, but getting the name out there. And I can see really, really good opportunities to collaborate, even though this would be a challenge. The next thing is time. We're always short on time. We all do, a job that is a highly demanding job. But I think that, as I've said again, is just this mass benefit of getting social media, special care dentistry on the social media scene is going to have such a huge reward that I can see in the future. And I hope you'd agree with that. So I think hopefully if we can put in that time to try and make that regular content, there will be a benefit. And I think every time I put something out there, I see that benefit from the comments that I get and the feedback that I get, and it does make it worth it. So it does want and encourage me to do more. And I'm hoping that you guys will see the same. The next thing is our professional education reputation. We've got to be mindful of this. We've got to be careful around this. And we want to make sure that everything we put out there is valuable, important, and impactful. And again, getting that balance is difficult. The next is miscommunication of information. But I think that, again, we as professionals, we take that responsibility on. And sometimes we can, with the challenging cases that we see, we could potentially oversimplify them. But again, I think this is where we use our colleagues to kind of be our sounding board and ensure that we're putting correct information out there. The next is accessible content. So especially if we're trying to reach our audience of patients, for example, or caregivers, how can we make our content more accessible? And I think this is a whole webinar in itself, and we're not going to be able to cover this in its entirety today, but hopefully what you're seeing as well with the social media platforms is that they are developing to basically become more intuitive in terms of accessibility. You can have things like captions, which are auto-generated, and audio descriptions at the bottom. So these are kind of small ways in which we can make our content more accessible. But I think this is something, again, that we would openly discuss in this forum today. Social media is an ever-changing landscape. Privacy settings are always changing. I think what we need to be mindful of is whatever we put online is, going to be permanent. It's going to be in the public forum. And so we just need to be mindful of this when we're putting things out there. Again, this is not to shy away from it, but it's just to be conscious of it so that we can ensure that the sensitive content we're putting out there is going to be in that public forum. And so we are mindful of this. And of course, I think this is why we're here today as well, because we all have reservations from colleagues within the profession, and we want to do the right thing. We're here to do the right thing. So I think that's why this webinar is so important, because this is our opportunity to discuss. And I think what we're hoping that this webinar achieves is overcoming those reservations and getting more people to be involved in our mission to fly the flag for special care dentistry. And I'll pass back on to Kiren for a little bit more about the guidance.
Lovely, thank you, Ayman. So hopefully we can have seen there are some challenges that we do need to work on overcoming, but there are plentiful benefits, and that's what's really important, that we do work on overcoming these challenges. As Ayman mentioned about the challenges, there's also guidance available that can help us overcome some of those challenges too. So when we prepared this presentation, we refer to guidance provided by the Dental Council. So I'm going to start with the Irish Dental Council and talk to you a little bit about what they have said specifically on social media. As well as looking at the dental councils, we did also take a look at the indemnifiers who do have some statements on social media use. So we do urge you to have a look at those as well. And then there's also a really great a comment in the chat as well about looking at your own organisation's social media policies as well. And they're all really important points that you need to look at before you do start to use social media, making sure that we are adhering to the guidance too. So take a moment just to read through the extract on social media from the Irish Dental Council, and then I will summarise with a little bit more detail on what the Code of Conduct does detail out in the guidance as well. So we can see that when we are engaging with social media, it is crucial that we are consulting and adhering to the Dental Council's guidance for the use of digital platforms and professional use. So it really isn't something to be taken lightly. As we know, it could lead to professional consequences, including disciplinary action if we're not responsible. Having said that, the guidance, however, is there to protect us and our patients. So therefore, it allows us to ensure we maintain high standards of conduct online. So it's not there to deter us from using social media. It's there to help protect us to be able to use it responsibly. So as dentists, we all know that we must act professionally at all times, respecting different views online, as well as only sharing information that we know to be true. Most importantly, we must always prioritise patient confidentiality, which goes without saying. So by following those guidelines, we can protect our own reputation, uphold the integrity in the dental profession, as well as maintaining the trust of our patients, which is paramount. So the guidance here is designed, as I said already, to protect us and not to discourage or hinder our use. So I think by making sure that we are looking at the guidance in detail, it can give us that confidence to be able to share online and even just make those first steps to signing up to social media, for example. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about the General Dental Council too. So I know the audience that we are addressing today is from an Irish background, but the reason that we included the GDC guidance as well is because it is a little bit more expansive compared to the Irish Dental Council. So here a few key points, making sure that we remember that the same professional standards that apply in person also extend to our online behaviour. It includes treating others with courtesy online, respect, and maintaining that confidentiality. So there are quite a few similarities between both the dental councils. They sort of echo each other. It's crucial that we don't share identifiable information, as Ayman mentioned already, without explicit consent. We must even be cautious about when we're discussing anonymised cases, as certain details, such as something quite unique to the patient, for example, a uniquely designed denture or a really rare specific medical condition, could identify the patient even if you hadn't mentioned their name or didn't include a photograph of them. So these nuances are important to be aware of, as it can make a case no longer truly anonymous. So I would usually probably err on the side of caution when it comes to cases like that and avoid posting anything about it whatsoever. I think if there is a post that you're not sure about, it's probably best to not post. So it's important that we ensure that we're always maintaining our professional boundaries when it comes to patients and colleagues, being mindful of the things that we share. So this is really important. So although you may not have created the content, if the content does breach any of the Dental Council's guidance, you could still be held accountable just by sharing that content. So whenever you do share anything, it's really important that you look at it in good detail to make sure that it isn't breaching any of the guidance. So social media can also blur boundaries between our professional and personal lives, and therefore anything that we do post can affect our professional reputation. So it's really important that you sort of do try and keep that boundary between your professional and personal accounts, and they suggest that by doing this, by having separate accounts, because that really allows you to keep things separate. Additionally, always reviewing your privacy settings, because they can change over time, and also being aware that they don't always guarantee complete confidentiality. And then finally, when it comes to raising concerns, social media is not an appropriate platform to do so. I'm sure we are all aware of this. So it's really important that you adhere to your formal challenge channels, like the whistleblowing procedures, as per your trust policies. So overall, by adhering to those guidelines, we can make sure we're using social media responsibly while safeguarding our profession and our patients. So some examples of social media in action. We wanted to give you some practical examples of social media to show you and give you some ideas on how you can actually incorporate special care dentistry in your posts, your reels, and your stories. So a great aspect, I think, personally, of special care dentistry is that it is so varied across the world, as well as within our own day-to-day, in the patients that we see and the things that we do. So essentially, it will never get boring. We'll always have stuff to share online. So that's the really great thing about special care. So here I'll share some examples from my own Instagram page. We have a short video here, also known as a reel, as we know if it's on Instagram. And this really just talks about when I first published a piece of work and I discussed some top tips. So it really gained some good engagement and allowed for some open discussion online. So we'll play this video, a couple of seconds, just to give you a flavour of what a reel is like on Instagram.
Super happy. My first publication in a scientific journal on some dental work that I carried out and managed to publish. I'm really enjoying with it. Definitely the process worth going through. We learned so much along the way.
I'm sorry if the audio is not that great on that one, but you can get a bit of an idea. There is a bit of music in the background. I'm just speaking over the video, and then it sort of refers to the caption, which I have written in some top tips on writing a publication. And then on the next slide, I have a selection of posts and stories that I've also posted as well. So the first one is an example of a post, so that's the permanent post on the page. And this was actually when I won a prize at a conference. And so here I'd written in caption a little bit more detail on the work that I presented at the conference. And this actually generated, again, a lot of discussion, with many dentists messaging me on the work that I presented, asking about silver diamine fluoride, asking where they could see the more work in more detail. So it really shows that social media acts as, a real great opportunity to share information, share the really great work that we're doing within our own workplaces, and that we can all sort of learn from as well. And then the next two images show some stories. So those are the updates that I do daily. They disappear after 24 hours. And, here the two examples where I haven't pictured a patient, I have just described what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. And for example, in the first one, I've discussed starting a new placement within oral medicine. I will usually then go on to add any key learning points that I've picked up on the clinic, as well as sharing any useful resources that I've picked up from the oral medicine consultants which they've recommended. And again, it's just really great at allowing us to share that information, improving us all as dentists, because how much oral medicine do we actually get to see on a daily basis, and learning from the oral medicine consultants is the best place that we can learn. So being able to share that with dentists makes us all better. So overall, you can see here that these posts give everyone a bit of a flavour of what I get up to daily within special care. And then finally, just sharing a little bit of the feedback that I've been getting on my social media as well. I've had some fantastic engagement from students, from dental core trainees, as well as dentists at different stages of their career. People thanking me for sharing, little bits on special care, because they don't get to see much on special care online. As well as others saying that they found seeing special care, really quite wholesome and positive. And that's something that I had to take a second to think about, because I hadn't thought about why someone may perceive the post as wholesome. But we know special care is thoroughly rewarding career, and it often allows us to reflect and practice gratitude for the lives that we're blessed to live. So therefore, by sharing special care online, it is quite refreshing dental content compared to what's already out there from the dental field online. So it is really important that we are sharing what we're doing and flying that special care flag, because many people do enjoy seeing it, as seen by some of this feedback here.
So thank you, Kiren. I've got to say I'm a bit biased, but I absolutely love Kiren's social media, love seeing what she's up to. And just like she said, I think with our profession, sometimes we can have really hard days that can be really challenging. And sometimes actually taking that moment to reflect upon what we're doing and put a little bit of a post out there reflecting upon your day is actually an opportunity for us to just be better and be better clinicians. And so I really love what you're doing. And I think fingers crossed from today, we'll get more encouragement for more of us to be involved. So we just wanted to do a little bit about how we can start using social media in special care dentistry. So the first is to follow and connect with professionals. This gives us the opportunity to network, as we mentioned, which is huge. LinkedIn, as we mentioned, suggests people. The next thing is, if you're not ready to take that plunge into posting content, engage with other people's content. The more we engage, the more visibility we get. So write a comment, like their post, and even if you're not able to, write a comment publicly, you can DM them privately. That is a great function to be able to reach out and connect with colleagues. We just need to be mindful that even though that is direct messaging, they can use your comments in a public forum still by screenshotting, etc. So just to be mindful. But I think the thing is, we want to build a really positive community, and so by engaging with other people's content and liking their posts, we can start to build that and really put special care dentistry on the dental public on the dental scene. As Kiren mentioned, our jobs are so varied on a day-to-day basis. It can never get boring. And then again, as we mentioned, sharing those kind of patient cases. And what I found really, really lovely in social media in special care dentistry is because some of the kind of rarer conditions, or even patients with kind of autism or learning disability, if not necessarily patients, but just that patient cohort, they tend to have their own pages. And we can follow those pages. And what I find is that actually reading about their life and the challenges they face and how they overcome them gives me an insight into their day. because we see them for a small snippet of their day and we manage their dental needs, but actually seeing their lives, because they have a social media presence, allows me to understand a bit more about them and then try and provide better care for them. And I'm hoping that you'll see the opportunity in that as well. So looking into the future, just a few things that we wanted to get across in this final slide. Dentistry is ever evolving. We want your help in this mission. We want to show special care dentistry in social media. We want to grow that field, and this is our opportunity to do so. We want to engage with this transformation that's happening, and we need to get on it. Hopefully this will encourage you to do so. We've got the opportunity to connect with colleagues and be part of this transformation and share our challenges, share our success, and use it to break down our barriers and build a community. We don't just want to come together at conferences and on webinars anymore. We want to come together on a regular basis and build that community, like I said, where we're sharing more information to be able to all better ourselves as clinicians. And we want to build a valuable connection with our community. We recognise that there's challenges, but hopefully today we've kind of talked about how we can overcome them. And I'm hoping that you're going to leave this webinar feeling positive about the future of special care dentistry, especially in relation to social media, because we can really fly that flag. I know we've said that throughout, and it's a common theme in our conversations between myself, Kiren, Ahmed, and Neil. Whenever we meet, we talk about that regularly, about how we can get the future of special care dentistry to be seen more, because I think we all do such wonderful things in our daily to day. It's just that we just need to talk about it more. So I'm hoping that this webinar has hopefully brought you to being convinced by special care dentistry within social media, and fingers crossed we'll see more of you online. Thank you very, very much. And these are just a few of the references we used in terms of talking about kind of the guidance, and we'd like to welcome any questions.
Wow, thank you. That was very, very inspiring. A lot of what you said was really motivating and quite self-reflective as I was listening. Yeah, I think I'm sure other people felt the same way. Well done, you two. That was absolutely incredible. We have a few questions, and I'm conscious of everyone finishing up early enough as well, so I won't delay you too long. But one of the questions was, would you be worried a patient would contact you via social media rather than typical clinical channels?
I think this is definitely something Kiren and I talked about before. And we said that, again, definitely, I think that's a concern for us. I think if that was to happen, I think it would be appropriate for you to actually speak within your organization as to how you would manage that. Because I think that, again, if it's a clinical query, again, something to do with their patient care, social media is not the right forum for it. And I think we need to make that kind of abundantly clear. So I think, again, definitely a concern, but I think a one that we can overcome by being quite clear, just having a ready message to send back to be like, this is not the appropriate channel, please contact via etc., or just for example not engaging. But I think I would leave that to the person's discretion. But like I said, Kiren and I don't have all the answers. We're ready to hear what you'd all think and what you'd do in that situation.
Yeah, I think you're right, absolutely. And as part of the ISDH, because we have a strong social media influence, we do get some patients inquiring about the lack of access to dental services and how best to do it. And I suppose another reason we're there to begin with is to signpost and to inform where to go with their query. We might not, like you said, Ayman, we don't have all the answers. We're just one person, or we're an organization, but what we can do is we can signpost and we can inform.
Yeah, and like we said, this is what we wanted today to be, was the start of the conversation. We're hoping you're going to take this online, offline, and this is just the beginning of it all, really.
Yeah, we're getting so much wonderful feedback on this on the presentation. So thank you again. I have another question here. Can you explain what an Instagram thread is? And maybe just the different parts of.
I think it's just a way. I've not personally used Instagram threads. Have you, Kiren?
I haven't personally, however, I did have a quick look online because it isn't one of the most popularly used ones. I think it is sort of one of the newer platforms that people are using. But having a look online, it seems like it's a little bit similar to X in the fact that you can create posts up to 500 characters in length. So sort of double, nearly double the length of what you can do in X. But you also have the option to include links, photos, and videos which are up to 5 minutes long. So it sounds like a little bit of an amalgamation between Instagram and X.
Thank you. We have another question here. Any thoughts on Blue Sky as an alternative to X? I think we briefly discussed.
Yeah, honestly, I've not had any kind of exposure to Blue Sky, so I wouldn't be able to comment on that one. But I'll go on. You go ahead, Ahmed or Kiren. What would you say about Blue Sky?
Personally, I haven't either, but I know that was when we were kind of reading a little bit about it and had a conversation previously. It did come up as a potential platform that people might use. I'd be curious to know if anyone in the audience here uses it and what their kind of feedback on it is. So yeah, that's a good question.
It's a very good one. Just to
Yeah.
add, again, having a little look online, it says that it's rapidly growing in use since the US presidential election. And actually, there's 27.5 million users. So maybe it's one that we're a bit late to the party. Yeah, it seems really similar to X again, but I think it's just an alternative. But again, I don't know that much on it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing as well. Social media can be quite overwhelming in that there's so many options. So my personal preference is to kind of go to one forum and use that platform and just try and use it well. And that's kind of what I would like to do. But I think again, you do get to engage with different audiences when you use different platforms. So that's quite a good benefit to it all. So you know what we want to see? We want to see special care on every forum. So fingers crossed after today, we'll be seeing it on Blue Skies. Blue Sky. We'll be seeing it on Instagram threads. We'll be seeing it across all the forums.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. So that's, if there's no more questions, that kind of draws the webinar to a wonderful conclusion. We have our speakers' social media links if you're interested to find out what kind of what they're posting and what ethical special care promotion looks like. Yeah, so thank you everyone for coming. I do want to, just before you leave, plug the next webinar, which will be on the 5th of March. The webinar topic is on medication-related osteonecrosis of the jaw, and it'll be by Dr. Harriet Byrne, who's based in Cork, one of our good friends. So stay tuned on our social media for that next webinar, where we will release open registration. Even more just as exciting is our summer conference for this year. As you can see, nope, where is it? Here. It's in the Royal Marine Hotel in Dunleary on the 5th and 6th of June in 2025, and registration will open in a couple of months, but do save the date. It'll be kind of around the treatment modalities within special care dentistry, which is relevant to all of us. So we look forward to seeing you on our upcoming events. So thank you very much, sincerely, Kiren and Ayman, for an inspired talk. And thank you to everyone who attended. I will we will leave you and have a wonderful evening and see you next time.